Emi603 superlab. Use new information to make a prediction based on a model. Before you get started watching the video for today, you should make sure you have the Emi603 skill sheet in front of you so that you can follow along with everybody in class. We're going to get started by reading through the background information on the skill. We have a volunteer to read the background information on the skill. All right.
Emi603 is a skill commonly tested through conflicting viewpoint passages two scientists arguing. The skill requires that you first understand both viewpoints given in the passage. The question then presents new information to you, and you will need to combine that with the information from the passage to make a new prediction or conclusion.
Excellent. These are the way the questions are phrased is you'll always have to assume that everything in the passage is already true, and they add something new on top of it. Right? That's the purpose of this skill. Let's get started by reading through the passage as listed. It's about two scientists are debating the reasons that zebras have stripes. Can we get a volunteer to read the first scientist's viewpoint? Fantastic. Now, as our volunteer is reading, the key things that you want to do as you are either following along and reading yourself or listening to someone read is any words that jump out at you that you do not know or you do not recognize. Circle, highlight, underline, dash, marked, whatever you need to do to mark it so we can go back and make sure that vocabulary is not the issue that is holding us back. All right, so armed with a pen in your hand, ready to circle, ready to highlight, we have our volunteer who's going to read Scientist 1's viewpoint.
One explanation scientists commonly use for zebra stripes is that they somehow add to camouflage the seagulls from their predators, thus increasing the seagull's chances of survival. Seagulls, like all members of the horse family, are nomadic racing animals. That is, that they do not remain in one place, but rather roam across large territories. Their habitat ranges from open grassy savannas to open woodlands and arid bushlands. Although you might not expect bold and contrasting stripes to blend in a background, somehow people have suggested that the stripes blend in well to the bushy background, where there is a mixture of trees and bushes and a contrast between light and shadow. Other people have suggested that the stripes camouflage the seagulls especially well as ducks, at a time when predators might be more likely to attack.
Excellent. So let's pause here for a second and make sure that there's no vocabulary that is holding us back. Does anyone want to offer up our first word that we're going to circle and go through together?
Nomadic.
Nomadic. That is right here. Great. Any other words?
Arid.
Arid.
Woodlands.
Yes. Savannas, open woodland, arid, brushlands. Good. Other terms?
Dust.
Dust. Nice. Other terms?
Camouflage.
Camouflage. Good. Other words? Going once. Going twice. And sold to these four. Okay, now in science there are 4 ways that you can acquire new information and definitions of words. The first way is that they're defined for you in the passage. The second way is you have to figure it out using context clues or background prior knowledge. And the third way is to look it up. On the ACT you can't look it up, so we avoid that one as much as possible. So let's get started seeing if we can figure out each one of these. First one, camouflage. Can anyone tell us what that word means?
To blend in.
Yeah, to blend in. So it wasn't defined anywhere in here, and this is just one of those words that's good to know going into the ACT. It does come up quite a bit when we're talking about animals. Camouflage means to blend in. All right. Next one, nomadic. This one's a little less well known. Nomadic. Ever heard the word nomadic before? What does it mean?
Isn't it defined in the passage?
Yeah.
That it's something that doesn't remain in the same place.
Excellent. So this one is actually defined in the passage for us. They do not remain in one place, but rather roam across large territories. You may have heard this word before in reference to nomadic tribes, maybe in history, all right, where the tribes themselves don't have one centralized location they stay at. They constantly on the move. Same thing is true for zebras. Zebras don't really have a home. They just keep walking and keep walking and keep walking and keep walking. All right. Next one, arid. Arid brushlands. Anyone ever heard that word before? It's actually a common product named arid? Do you know what product is named arid? Actually, a brand of deodorant is named arid. Actually, I don't even know if it's around anymore. There was a brand of deodorant that's named arid. All right, why would you want to name a deodorant brand arid? What do you think it means? Clean? That's a good hypothesis based on the deodorant one. All right, what is a couple of functions of deodorant? They get rid of smell, and they also prevent you from doing what? Sweating. Arid actually means dry. All right, so arid is a dry brush on it. Last but not least, dust. Does anyone have, first off, it's not defined for us here. Does anyone have an idea of what the term dusk means? Yeah, it's sort of in the night. What about even more specifically then? It's not like middle of the night though.
It's like where the sun is about to set, where you can see the sky is like half orange, and like the sun's like right in the middle of the setting, and then still like rise.
Yeah, perfect. So it is technically evening time, but it's like when the sun is down, but the world is still bright. All right, it's usually when you get those really nice sunset colors in the sky, the pinks and the oranges and everything. That's what we mean by dusk. So there's some light, but there's not a lot of light. All right, is what we mean by dusk. So it's a little bit like just post sunset. All right, it's dusk. All right, great. So now we have a whole bunch of terms in here. Overall, can anyone summarize for us what Scientist 1's thought about zebras are? Why do they have stripes?
It makes a lot. To just fit in more into the environment, like the area amongst like grass areas, bushy areas. They're easier to like hide. Yeah, essentially the big word that we want to make sure that we can pull out of this one, Scientist 1, is all about hiding. Right, Scientist 1's big point is that the reason that they have stripes is to hide. All right, let's jump into Scientist 2 then and take a look at the first paragraph. We're going to go through just like we did before and find any words. We should be circling them if they jump out in vocab words that we aren't really familiar with. Do we have a volunteer to read the first paragraph of Scientist 1? Fantastic, thank you. Scientist 2, zebras are extremely social animals. They congregate in herds that range in size from 2 to 20 individuals. The size of the herd depends on the species of zebra, the environmental conditions of climate, and the availability of water and food. In these herds, zebras interact a great deal. For example, scientists commonly observe zebras grooming, jostling, nibbling, conducting mock battles between their males, and exhibiting a variety of playful behaviors. Although some of the zebras' behaviors appear to serve no purpose, some scientists have suggested that such behaviors increase the overall population among the zebras in a herd, thus increasing the survival of individuals. For example, zebras in herds, especially young zebras, might be less susceptible to attack from predators.
Fantastic. And then let's take the second paragraph.
Scientists who have studied the visual abilities of different mammals have found that several types of nerve cells in the brain are excited by crisp black and white stripes. These are the nerve cells that detect contrasting tones, linear orientations of objects, edges, and the flicker effects of moving edges. Some scientists have inferred from this evidence that a zebra within its herd cannot escape the visual stimulation of the stripes. This evidence suggests that zebras actively seek this visual stimulation. In addition, zebras also respond in a similar manner to artificially striped panels.
Excellent. All right, so let's go through and do the vocab first before we summarize the argument. Is there any words that jump out that we want to go over?
Congregate.
Congregate. Beginning, good. Cohesion. And let's see. Oh. Nipping.
Jostling.
Susceptible.
Where's that? the end of the first paragraph.
That's fine. The first one.
Last line. Nice. Stimulation. Excellent. Taylor? Going once. Going twice. Sold. Okay, let's get started off in the beginning. They congregate in herds that range in size from 2 to 20. Based on that, just kind of context of the word congregate, what do we think congregate means? Anyone heard that word before?
To come together.
Yeah, to come together. Some forms of this word you may have heard before, like a congregation, especially like in a church group, is when congregation, a group of people come together. So congregate means to come together. All right, next one. Both of these words are referring to a weird thing that zebras do when they're together. Jostling. Does anyone know what jostling is? Not Jocelyn, but jostling.
I'm thinking like fighting or like spin fighting.
Yeah, well, it's sort of what you guys do when you line up for lab. Like it's a little elbow like shove here and there, and like try to get to the front of the line and moving around. So jostling is like little pushes. It's like not really fighting. Like nobody's punching anybody in the hallway. All right, well, except for a few students. But it's like little pushes. Good.
Does it have anything to do like a bear?
Yeah, you'll see him like stamp on the ground a little bit, which is that same kind of motion. And what about nipping? Do you know what the term nipping means? Has anyone ever been nipped before by like a little animal? Has anyone's dog ever nipped them before?
Is it kind of like fighting?
Yeah, it's biting, but it's like little bites. All right, that's why like little like chihuahuas or those tiny little like lap dogs will like sort of nibble on your finger. It's kind of like nipping. All right, but they're little bites. Good. All right, the next word we have is cohesion. So sometimes scientists have suggested that behaviors increase the overall cohesion among the zebras in a herd. What do we think that word cohesion means? To cohesion?
Does it have to do like
That's similar to comprehension. All right, cohesion. If it's increasing the cohesion in the zebras, all right, we know in a herd, if we're going to increase the cohesion, what could that mean?
Like appearance?
Oh, good thought.
interaction?
In a specific kind of interaction too. If a group is very cohesive, the group is very close and stuck together. All right, so cohesion is like sticking together. All right, and now not the last word, second to last word, susceptible. All right, this is also a good word to know if you're taking a flipper flap quiz. If you haven't taken that one yet. Susceptible, you might be less susceptible to attack. What do we think the word susceptible means based on that description? You're less susceptible to attack. I'm sorry, say it?
Likely.
Yeah, likely to be attacked. So it's able to be affected by. All right, so if I'm susceptible to something, I'm able to be impacted by it. All right, I am susceptible to getting hit in the head with a brick. All right, I am not susceptible to. I am not susceptible to the common cold because I'm around 160 germy teenagers every day. So I built up a resistance. Okay. The last one is stimulation. What do we mean by stimulation? Specifically visual stimulation.
Make the result pretty fast.
Yeah, and it's particularly of the brain too. All right, so it's not able to escape the visual stimulation. So it's the brain kind of detecting something or seeing the impact or effect of something. So it's a brain activity. Okay, this one's a little more complicated then if we're going to summarize it. Why does scientist 2 say that zebras stick together in herds? What do we think? What is scientist 2 saying here about these herds? What is the hypothesis here of scientist 2?
Them sticking together makes better situated.
Excellent, yeah. So the reason for the benefit of herds is this last sentence right here. So zebras and herds, especially young zebras, might be less susceptible to attacks from predators. All right, if you're a jackal and you're hunting a zebra, and you have two options. You have one zebra sitting on their own, or you have 15 zebras all bumping into each other and fighting each other. Like, the group that you're going to attack is clearly the individual, because you're going to be less likely to get kicked in the head by 15 zebras that way. All right, so essentially, in this case, the group means protection for the zebras. But now, there's also kind of a second part of this that he goes into in terms of, like, zebras don't necessarily understand that a group is good for them. A lot of times we'll try to put, like, human understanding or human attributes onto animals. Like, if you've ever gotten really mad at your dog because your dog has, I don't know, like, peed on the floor or something. You're like, why would you do that? You're not supposed to pee on the floor. Well, like, dogs don't understand really where to pee and where not to pee. So they don't have that kind of understanding. You can train them where it's good to go and where it's bad to go, but we can't actually instill an understanding of that spot's good and that spot's bad. The same kind of thing with zebras. Zebras don't necessarily know, like, hey, we should hang out in groups. So evolution has actually tried to put something into them to make them more likely to be in groups. So why do they like to be in groups?
Because of stripes.
Yeah, what do the stripes do?
They like make the stimulation in their brain.
Yeah, so stripes stimulate the brain. Which leads to groups, which leads to protection. All right, so scientist 2 is also saying, is not saying here that zebras actively want to be protected. They just want to stick together in groups. They're like, hey, stripes, come here. And they hang out with each other. They say, hey, look, more stripes. And they wander over. All right, in fact, they even say in here, which is kind of interesting, I watched a video of this study once, zebras respond similarly to artificially striped panels. So, like, you can put a striped box in the middle of the room, and guess what all the zebras do? Yeah, they, like, walk over to it and stand next to it. Yeah.
So they were to see us stressing like stripes. So.
Yeah, like, you get, like, a referee, and you get them standing out. Well, I guess referees are horizontal, so they do need to be vertical. They don't respond to horizontal stripes, which is interesting. Yeah, so if you got some sort of vertically striped clothing and you just stood out in the field, where kind of hang out there, you get a zebra that walks up next to you. All right, just be careful when it tries to jostle, nibble, or conduct a mock battle with you. It doesn't go so well. Okay, so now based on all this information, we can fill out a Venn diagram like this. What we're looking for are similarities and differences between the two scientist models. All right, so what I'd like to do is now take some ideas, is to just give one idea and where you think it should go. Is it just a scientist 1 thing over here, just a scientist 2 thing over here, or is it both, which would go in the center? All right, let's get some ideas and start to write them up here for clarification purposes. What's something that just scientist 1 thinks that scientist 2 doesn't think? All right, especially in relation to the stripes. Hiding. Good.
Just one.
Anywhere. Yeah, you can put them anywhere. All right, we want to be in, so like in a group. Good. Other ones.
For both, it could be protection.
Good. In the end, they're both about protection. Nice. Good. Scientists 2 would, or like if I use the phrase, they're loud and noisy, which scientist would that go with? 2. All right, they're loud and they're fighting all the time. What if we talked about, yeah.
They were scientists when they travel. Not nighttime, but
Excellent. So scientist one talks about that the time of day impacts their safety. All right, so that the stripes are most helpful when? At dusk, yeah. What about scientist two? What about the time of day? Doesn't matter? No, not at all. Like they're in a group at night, they're in a group during the day, they're just in a group. Doesn't really matter. Where else would we put something here? Anybody think of anything that pertains to both of them maybe? That they would agree on? All right, what if I said the phrase, which scientist thinks that a quiet zebra is a protected zebra?
Scientist one.
Scientist one, fantastic. Because you don't want a zebra making a lot of noise or else the hiding goes away. So the zebras over here you'd expect to try to be quiet. Another?
One for both of them would be they both blend in. Because for scientist one, the single zebra blends in with the bushes and stuff. And scientist two, the other zebras blend in with themselves. Yeah, a whole bunch of them. So,
Oh, like the young ones?
yeah.
Okay, yeah. So scientist two actually says that the young ones are more protected because they blend in. So there is a blending idea here. Good.
Can you say that they both have red, black, and white stripes?
Excellent. Yeah, they both have stripes. Good. All right, so what we want to do now that we have a list like this where we can start to separate the two scientists is see if we can use these to differentiate which scientists would talk about what. So an example version of an EMI603 question would look something like this. It'll give you new information and then asks you which scientist would agree with something or what would a certain scientist's prediction be. So in this case, a plant disease sweeps through the savanna and kills most of the brush and trees. According to scientist one, what would happen? First off, what's the new information that they're giving us here? Yeah, so the disease is the new information. All right. And so according to this new information, what don't we have anymore? Yeah, brushes or trees, which relate to camouflage. So according to scientist one, what would happen then if there was no more brushes to hide between? Well, many zebras would be killed by predators. All right. What if the question were phrased the other way? Plant disease sweeps through the savanna and kills most of the brushes and trees. According to scientist two, what would happen to the zebras?
Nothing.
Nothing, exactly, because they're not hiding. All right. So if this were a question that said scientist two, it would, nothing would happen. What you want to do right now is you want to, in order to make sure that you have a good background knowledge of both of the scientists in your teams, you want to look at the following questions. So the following questions will help you solidify your knowledge of the passage. For each question, list which scientist, one, two, both, or neither, would claim that the statement is true. All right, and the first one's given as an example. So the first one is the zebra's camouflage to help protect the zebras in many types of habitats. All right, that would be scientist two. All right, because scientist one says it's got to be a brushy, like a brush line. All right, so do 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 with your teams. If you're watching this video at home, you should pause right now, answer questions 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and press play when you're ready to go through the answer. If you are pressing play at this point, you've answered questions 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. If you haven't answered them yet, make sure you push pause again until you do it. We're going to go through the answers right now. Let's take a look at question 2. Which scientist would think the following statement is true? I want to read. Who wants to read number 2 for us?
Zebras' stripes are present to camouflage them, and scientists one only says it.
How come?
Because zebras have their stripes to camouflage in like around the trees, so they won't get.
And how come scientist 2 wouldn't say that?
Because he says that they're in groups.
Right. Good. So this answer should be scientist 1 only. All right, number 3.
So social behavior of zebras aids them regardless of whether they are in a group of 2 or a herd of 20. Scientists 2 only because it talks about zebras being in groups.
Excellent. So the group behavior. And the scientists won't say anything about group behavior?
No.
No, nothing at all. So it's just the 2. All right, number 4. We have volunteer to read number 4.
Zebra stripes impact their ability to survive because both.
How come?
Because number one talks about how they use their stripes to hide, and then talking about how they use their stripes to stick together better.
Excellent. So they're both saying they help, they just help in different ways. So both would agree that stripes impact their ability to survive. Nice. Question number 5.
Without zebra stripes, they would not stay together.
How come not scientist 1? Excellent. Yeah, scientist 1 doesn't say anything about them staying together in groups. And last but not least, question number 6. We have volunteer for number 6.
Without zebra stripes, they would not be able to sleep well.
Neither. How come?
Because neither will have strong.
Yeah, because the stripes are not there to help them stalk their prey. They're there to help them hide. All right, so this would be a neither. Okay, at this point, if you can answer all of these. Oh, quick question.
Can you explain number 3 again?
Yeah, number 3. So social behavior of zebras aids them regardless of whether they are in a group of 2 or in a group of 20. If we go back to the original paragraph, we see that scientist 2 refers to them in group herds in size of 2 or size of 20. So he's saying they stay in groups to stay protected. Is a lion more likely to attack 1 zebra or 20 zebras in a group? 1 zebra, because it's safer. Is a lion more likely to attack 1 zebra or a pair of zebras? Still 1, because it's safer to attack 1. So you're going to focus on 1, you get kicked in the head by the other if you go in pairs. So the bigger the group, the better, but any sort of social cohesion is going to be good for them.
So, because I got tripped off, like, it said regardless of whether they are in groups, so I said if they're not in groups, then they're not going to act up.
Oh, so when they say regardless of whether you're in these groups, this is giving you the option. So it's regardless, so it doesn't matter if they're in a group of 2 or in a herd of 20, they would both be, they would both be helpful. Now again, these are varying levels of helpful. So this one would probably be much better than this one. All right, but they would both be helpful in some way, shape, or form.
On the ACT, will they have questions like 3 where you can find it straight in the passage, or is it like just going to be like the ones that we did an example question on?
Yeah, the difficulty level of the ACT is totally dependent on the type of question. Sometimes there's like right there. And actually, these type of questions are Emi601, I believe, style questions, where it's like which scientist agrees or disagrees. And sometimes it's like all you have to do is read the first sentence of what they say and it's their hypothesis. Other times you got to read through the entire thing and then try to interpret what they're saying. So it could be either way. All right, what you want to do right now is take a look at questions 7, 8, and 9. You want to press play you want to press pause right now and make sure that you answer questions 7, 8, and 9. There are hints included for questions 7 and 8 to make sure that you can get the right answer. Once you've found the answer for questions 7, 8, and 9, you want to press play again and we'll go through the answers. Good luck. If you are pressing play at this point, that means you've already answered questions 7, 8, and 9, and you're ready to go through the answers. Let's get started off with question 7. We have a volunteer to read question 7 for us.
It was suggested that zebras used to have lighter stripes. Scientist 1 would predict that he said zebras predators used to pass more straight days and at night.
How do we say that?
Oh, because scientist 1 passage says that other people have suggested that the stripes emphasize their special stuff. So that's not what
Excellent. And so when do you want to have the best protection? Like if you have 2 options, so like everything's eating you at night or everything's eating you during the day, when do you want to be the most protected?
At night?
Yeah, at night when the things are eating you. All right, so if you're getting eaten at night and not getting eaten during the day, you want your protection up at night. All right, because it's pointless to have day protection if you're not getting eaten during the day. So in this case, if you have lighter stripes, all All right, lighter stripes are going to be better for a brighter area. All right, and a brighter area in this case, better to attack during the day than at night. All right, let's take a look at question 8. All right, question 8. We have to read question 8.
If a black and white striped plastic animal, same size and shape as a zebra, is placed in the center of an open field next to a purple zebra, scientists too will predict that C, the zebra's will move to and from the animal.
Why'd you say that?
We picked B because if they notice another animal with the same stripes, and most likely not run away from it, they wouldn't attack it. And they actually saw it, so they would actually see it. So they would follow that.
Excellent, yeah. All right, remember that the stripes are stripes. Like zebras aren't smart enough to say, hey, those aren't stripes or those are stripes on a zebra. They just like stripes. Ooh, stripes, let's go hang out. It's like those little alien creatures from Toy Story when the claw comes. Ooh, the claw. The stripes. Okay, let's get to the last one. Number 9. We have a volunteer to read number 9 for us.
According to their hypothesis, the scientists won which of the following results was expected if most of the trees and bushes and a zebra's ecosystem were replaced by grass. We chose A, the zebras would be less likely to survive because they use the trees and bushes for camouflage, so those replaced by grass.
Excellent, fantastic. All right, what you want to do right now is twofold. If you feel like you understand these questions, try to go back and try to flip the scientist and see if you can still do it. So if you're watching this video a second time and you're just trying to get some last practice, you should see if you could still answer all of these questions if it said the other scientist. All right, because there's a very good chance that that's a question that's on the quiz. All right, after you've done practice like that and you want to move on to the next section of questions, answer questions 10, 11, and 12. All right, these are questions that also could be on the quiz in either format. So working in groups or working at home, you want to work on them while the quiz is paused. All right, if you are pressing play at this point, you've answered questions 10, 11, and 12, and you are ready to go through the answers. So question 10, assuming that zebras are very noisy and are herds, which of the following predictions is most likely true? If we look at our options here, okay, zebras are very noisy. Zebra stripes being used as camouflage doesn't make any sense. Camouflage hides things, which are you heard. Zebra stripes are used to attract mates. Well, neither scientist discusses that anywhere, so we know that that's not happening. So then the two questions we need to examine are, is it that zebra stripes are used to keep groups together, or zebra stripes are used to scare away predators? Now remember that scientist 2 says that groups of zebras are scared. And it's the stripes that lead to the groups form. So of our two options here, zebra stripes are used to keep groups together. This is the only one that's true. But the stripes are not actually used to scare the predators away. It's just the size of the group that actually scares the predators. So in this case, C is our right answer. 11. One of the zebra's major predators is a hyena. According to scientist 1, which of the following is probably true? Now remember that zebras have stripes that blend in at dusk. You're going to have your stripes when it's most beneficial for you. It's most beneficial for you when you are being hunted, which means that the hyenas are hunting zebras. That means that hyenas must be hunting in the dim evening hours. Last but not least, researchers recently discovered that zebra brains are unable to distinguish crisp black stripes from crisp white stripes, which is the following likely true. This new data completely eliminates scientist 2's entire theory. And scientist 2 is saying that the reason that they have stripes is because the stimulates their brain. If their brains can't determine that, well then we must know that keeping the groups together isn't true. We already know that zebra stripes don't scare away predators, and nobody says anything about attracting mates. So this new information supports scientists' idea. All right, at this point, if you have effectively answered all of these individual questions, you are ready to take the quiz. If you still need to go back and you're still a little confused, try taking the earlier tactic of switching the scientists on questions 7, 8, and 9. You can also do this in question 11 to determine if you can answer the other versions of the questions. Or if you're ready, you should just go on and take the quiz. Good luck.